Hey, welcome into the Husker247 Podcast. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Brian Christopherson. It is Tuesday, just a few days removed from Nebraska's win against Michigan State, and a few more days from when Nebraska takes on Maryland. BC, we've called this before the year kind of the critical stretch of Nebraska's schedule. You had Michigan State, Nebraska passed that test. Now you go on the road for really the first time all year. You're going out to College Park, taking on Maryland, then got to come back, turn around, quick trip to Minnesota. Then you got the Northwestern game. Relative to what you thought coming into the season, what do you think about this stretch now for Nebraska, where you've got these teams, Maryland better than probably you expected, Northwestern probably exactly what you expected, and Minnesota, I don't know. What do you think of this next three games now that we've had the ability to watch the first 6 weeks of the season?
Yeah, you nailed it. Maryland's a little better. Minnesota and Northwestern are about the same to me as I thought. And so I guess what I'd say is the mission, or like the degree of difficulty of the mission, is about what I thought it would be. And now it's just a question of in some ways, can Nebraska get out of its own ways? Can they play to their best capabilities? Because I do think if they do that over the next 2 weeks, they can come back with a 6-1 record. But I understand where people are skeptical of that. Like, how is this team going to handle themselves on the road? I think they probably were done a favor, Schaefer, even though Maryland is maybe upgraded a little bit more than we thought by the fact that the Terps blew that game the way they did last week, where you're up 20-0 and 20-3 in the fourth quarter. And then you end up on the wrong side of it. I think the stadium would have been buzzing a lot more if they were 5-0 and I don't know, potentially ranked had they won last week. They would have been around there. And now I'm curious what the crowd's going to be like, and also what a young Maryland team's going to be like they have 8 freshmen that even going into last weekend, I think the stat was had played more than 90 snaps. So they're a young football team that was sort of dealt their first punch, where they got to see how they can get off the deck now. And so that's where it's going to be big if Nebraska can pop on them early and sort of add to last week's misery.
On today's podcast, I've got a handful of discussion points, topics, statistics, however we want to call it. And I'm going to just simply ask Brian if he's buying or selling what he's seen so far regarding these things. And we're going to start right away with Nebraska, Maryland. Brian, do you buy that the biggest strength Nebraska has going into this game against Maryland is John Butler relative to a young quarterback in Malik Washington? John Butler and Nebraska's defense, what they've been able to do quarterbacks with a guy that, Malik Washington has played well, but this is a pretty tall task ahead for him, especially with what you've seen Nebraska do to every quarterback on their schedule. So
yeah, I'll buy that, because I think this is it's a strength on strength matchup, but I feel like Nebraska flexes a little bit more. Like, Maryland has 2 wide receivers who have more than 300 yards and average 17 per catch, but I don't want to overdo it. They're ranked about 50th in the country in pass offense. So they're okay. They do have a young QB, as you mentioned, in Malik Washington, who's got a lot of potential, but you would hope an advantage is that John Butler can throw some stuff at him that is confusing and forces him into like 2 or 3 throws that he's going to wish he didn't make by the end of this game. And so, I mean, it's hard to argue with Nebraska's defensive pass stats so far. Like, I know we had that stretch where there was Akron and Houston Christian. It's like, well, they haven't played anybody, but now you're 5 games in, and 3 of the 5 are against quarterbacks like 5-star Bryce Underwood, even though he's young. Aiden Childs is a pretty interesting guy, and Sorsby's been lighting it up since. So yeah, I'll say that's an advantage for Nebraska going in. I'll buy.
when like we're just talking about Nebraska's secondary in general, do you like who do you think this isn't the exact nature of the game, but I kind of want to drill in on this. Who do you think their best player is in that secondary? Or all of these guys kind of just playing roughly at the same level, which makes it that difficult? There is no easy matchup to go pick against. Andrew Marshall's playing well. Sierra Wright's playing well. In the second level or behind those guys, Deshaun Singleton coming off a 2 interception game, just being Johnny on the spot on a couple of overthrows. I mean, do you think anybody has exceeded their play higher than anybody else in kind of that defensive secondary right now?
I don't think there's an easy person to pick at. I would say Sierra Wright is my answer to your question because Singleton's playing really well too. But Sierra, the fact that he moved into nickel with the Hartzog injury and just like, I mean, he came up and had some nice sticks too in that game against the run and has shown how physical he can be. And he's emerged as more of a leader than I ever knew, like when this year started, back in winter mat drills and stuff like that. Like he's the guy who's like ripping them for giving up a touchdown to the backup QB at the end of last game. And so I'd go with Sierra. I think Donnie Jones was the guy that Michigan State tried to pick at a little bit, but the win made it difficult. And so, he's probably the younger guy that I would guess Maryland wants to test in this game. And we'll see if Hartzog can pop back into it. He's been out 3 weeks. I do think he's important to get at some point down the stretch. But Sierra Wright's my answer. What a transfer pickup that guy was 2 years ago from USC, arriving late in the summer and the momentum he's had since then.
Buy or sell, Desan McCulla has been a different player than you anticipated he would be in 2025.
I guess for this particular game, sell, because he's been what I thought he was going to be. I think his activity has started to ramp up each week, and I thought he was important in his own way, even if the stats didn't show it against Michigan State. Like there were plays where he was like the spy on Childs, and he's just such a useful weapon in that regard. And so he's been what I hoped he would be. Like I knew it would probably take some time as he worked into more of that jack and played closer to the line of scrimmage than he had in a while. And I think he's building confidence with each week. I actually think, I could be wrong, but when opponents are drawing up what they're going to do against Nebraska's defense, I have a feeling McCulla is like one of the first 2 names on the board. Like, how do we deal with him and sort of try to erase him from the equation?
So for me, the reason I kind of asked this is I was a guy I was a little skeptical of, as you might remember from some of our podcasts. And I think one of the mistakes I made was not giving him enough credit that he could sort of evolve in different things. I think he's been a lot better than I anticipated. I think he's gotten better as a pass rusher as the season has gone on because he's sort of learned some different techniques or is playing a different position, certainly than he was against Oklahoma. And because of that, he needed a little bit of time to kind of be able to improve upon some things. And I think that's what I'm seeing from him right now. And so overall, I would say I've been fairly impressed by Desan McCulla, and he's certainly been better than I anticipated coming into this. I didn't know what to make of him, and I was a little worried that he wasn't going to fit in Big Ten play, and I don't have that same worry anymore.
That's interesting.
I really don't. Okay, next one. Buy or sell, Nebraska's special teams is really this good?
Yeah, I'll buy that. I believe in
-1 yards on punt return. Yeah. They're blocked multiple kicks already this season. Ja'Cory Barney has 270 some yards, or I don't know if he has. The team has 270 some yards in punt return. They theoretically look like they could score on a punt return at some point this year. I don't know when it's going to happen. We've seen it happen. I don't know when it's going to count on the scoreboard. The snaps are good. The kicking looks good. You're buying all of this? No mirage, nothing that you're concerned about. No, buts.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean,
you're driving it off the lot.
Yeah, definitely. Every special teams unit throughout the course of the year is probably going to have one game or in 12 where they get beat or it's, neutral or whatever. That'll happen. But for the long haul, yeah, definitely buying. Archie Wilson, I know he struggled against the wind and figured out like what Nebraska wind is like on, one of those days. And so there were some lessons there. That was just going to be an impossible day, I think, to kind of punt. But all in all, like Cunanan has been solid. He missed the one he wish he had back. I'm sure you're going to miss your game, but you're going to miss once in a while.
He missed hit.
Yeah, you're going to miss one once in a while. And then Ja'Cory has kind of lived up to his boast that I want to lead the country in punt returns, and he is fifth. He would be second if the one had stood the 81-yarder. So The biggest thing that stood out to me yesterday was at the press conference, Rule was talking about the Jameer Khan block punt. And you heard how everybody thought they were going to block the punt. And like a day before the game, Satterfield's talking with Rule, and he's like, Satterfield was so like dialed into what Eckler's message was about exactly how it was going to happen. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, they're going to do this, he's going to do that. And like Satterfield was telling Rule, like, that's what's going to happen. Khan's going to block the punt. And it was just kind of a cool thing, like that, to hear that kind of explained out. Like they had dissected that to the point where there was like a 98% certainty that was going to happen. And they made Jameer Khan, more importantly, believe that was like his destiny to go block that punt with his lower body. If we're going to keep it PG, that's how far he was in there.
With his belt. He blocked it with his belt.
Yeah, he belt. So, I mean, that was it's stuff like that. That's why I'm buying. Like when you have a guy who's like drawing it up where he's like, okay, I've seen the chess pieces, how they're going to move. And this is how we're going to Bobby Fischer you.
Buy or sell, Nebraska's special teams is actually its best unit of the three.
Yeah, I'd buy that too. I mean, it's the one I feel most confident about right now.
Yeah. It's the one that travels the best, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like each week, I feel like they're going to be good. I really do. Like it is wild. And we've all lived it, obviously. We all watched how they played last year, but it is so wild how different everything feels regarding everything Nebraska does on special teams. Like it feels like they finally joined the rest of the conference where this is a weapon for you. This is a way that you can win football games. This is a way to set up your offense. This is a way to help mitigate mistakes. Like they did it all on Saturday, and it feels like that's sustainable. It doesn't feel like a fluke to me.
I think besides his teaching and just his energy, one of the best things he was able to do, Eckler, was come in and immediately convince guys, maybe not immediately, but over a short amount of time, like whatever happened in the past, that's not on me or us, as we're going to do it. And he almost like transferred his Tennessee mojo that he had the last 4 years.
Tennessee mojo, I like it.
Yeah, to these guys where it's like, this is what I've done. Like he said this in a press conference, is why I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. He's like, I don't know that stuff of the past year. I know walk-off field goals. Like he's talking about how Tennessee hit him and stuff like that. And I think that guys just like fed off that and like, yeah, that's sort of the way it's going to be. Let's just go now.
I think I remember that Mike Eckler August press conference. And one of the things that he stood in there, and it just stuck with me, like how confident he was in saying it, is that we're not going to talk about this week to week. Like week to week, there might be a mistake or there might be something in there. He basically said at the end of the year, you're going to look up and we're going to be great on special teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're halfway or almost halfway to that being absolutely correct. I mean, it is remarkable just what that I think has done for the entire program.
That's good that you brought that up, though, because that's what I was saying, where there will be a game, I bet, where it doesn't go their way. And it could happen Saturday and people will be like, oh, you guys are fools on that thing. I think by the end of November, you're going to say like they won on like 10 of the 12 games on special teams. I think that's where it's tracking.
Buy or sell by November, Williams Winery is going to be a marked man in this conference as a defensive lineman.
Man, I'm sounding really positive. With all the questions you're asking, though, I'm buying.
Maybe I'm asking too many positive questions.
Yeah,
don't worry, we got the offense to come still.
Yeah, I'll buy that because he's just gotten so much better than I ever thought he was going to be at this point. Don't you think? Like I thought he was going to be a 20 snap game guy this year that was effective in moments where you're like, oh, there it is. There's a flash. And I believe he was going to be a really good player. I just thought next year we would see more of what we've already seen within the first 5 games. So that's sort of my take.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be a better version of what Keona Davis was a year ago. Does that make sense? Like the kind of the guy that rotates in where you're like, that guy has a lot of potential. It's going to be fun to see him unleashed. And now, I mean, he's not perfect by any means. There's a long way for him to go to get to where you ultimately want him to be. but you can see just the sort of raw athleticism combined with that size, why he has a chance to be a pretty special player. And if he continues to work hard and they continue to put him in situations that it's going to be tough for teams to deal with as he continues to figure out how to play college football at a high level. Like I think he is someone that I am as excited to see and to talk about in the middle of November as anybody on the roster, because I think there could be a pretty big jump in there. And we've already seen it in 5 games. I mean, he showed flashes against Cincinnati, and that guy against Cincinnati and the guy who played against Michigan State this past weekend, he's an even better player in just those 5 games, the 4 games since the Cincinnati one.
Well, you've seen why I was the number 6 player in the entire recruiting class. Like I mean, for a redshirt freshman, that dynamic potential is already starting to being unleashed. And you got to give a lot of credit to the surroundings, here in Nebraska. Like, I think he's comfortable with this place and some of the coaches. He had the connection with Mosey, of course. And I think they got him to get past the pressure of being like a first-round draft pick, so to speak. Like, let's just go have fun and keep getting better each day. And he's bought into that.
Buy or sell, Nebraska's ability to stop the run will be its Achilles heel as it goes throughout the rest of the season.
I would say, let's see. I would say sell, actually, on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
BC's in on this defense, folks.
Well, I think they're trending right enough. I think there's going to be a couple games where they still get dinged. So maybe you could say it's almost a wash with, to your question. But I do think, because of what we're talking about with Williams Winery, who's playing upwards of 50 snaps per game, and he's getting a lot better. And Elijah Judy is actually, like, the last 2
played
games.
well.
Yeah.
He played well against Michigan, and I think Nebraska's defensive line played a lot better against Michigan than what other people seem to think. I thought more of their issues were behind them than those guys in front. And Judy was getting sort of like run down, and I thought he actually had a good game against Michigan, and then I thought he played very well against Michigan State on Saturday.
I agree with you about Michigan, and that's why I said sell to the answer, because I think the more you went back to that game, there was more, the explosives were second and third level related. Obviously, sometimes you got to get off a block. That's a tough team to do it against every time. But it wasn't like they were just getting worked over by that O-line. And so, I don't know, this October schedule is such that I think they can build confidence, because Maryland's going to, as we've, they're going to throw it a little bit more. I think that you got to show you can stamp out the run again this week. I'm sure Minnesota will want to test Nebraska's physicality there. And so that's going to be a big one. But Northwestern, I mean, they can have a little bit of juice going into November. And so I don't think it's going to be a deal, should say, where we're going to just be saying that's an eyesore and that's just the obvious, stain on this team. So, and I think there was a point a few weeks ago where we might have thought that.
Buy or sell, Nebraska's offensive line is just something the Huskers are going to have to work around the rest of the season. It's just sort of what it is. It's not going to get a lot better from where it is right here.
I've been so positive. It feels like I need to. I'm not up on them right now, so I'll say buy. I think they have the experience to. You know how I am. I sit on the fence sometimes on this stuff, because I do think you can evolve throughout a season.
There's a good reason to sit on the fence.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah, usually. But it's not good on shows like this to sit on the fence.
That's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to be a character. Just be Brian Christopherson.
No, I do think the move with Pritchett to left and Gatula at right, I like that, and I'm optimistic of what they can do with it now going forward. And I don't think it was as bad as it seemed over the course of the game Saturday. But I would be lying if I said I'm not a little disappointed in that group right now. Like, I mean, let's look at what the standard was when we answer this question. They were saying before the season, like, Joe Moore Award, some guys. Like, and I know that's your preseason talk, all that, but they had those sort of goals, and they're far from that right now. They're not as bad as some people think they are at all. But they really got to step it up these next few weeks and like reestablish, like they thought they were going to be a strength of this team. They think they can be. They got to be that group where you expect when they're down at the 2-yard line, they're going to punch it in, running the ball, and I don't quite feel that way about them right now.
Buy or sell, Nebraska's backup running back situation has clarity by the end of the year.
Sell. I think it could be.
I told you we could get you to some negatives here.
Yeah.
You were worried about being too positive.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be a deal where like we see like Mosey pop up one week, then Nelson, and I just feel like by the end of it, I don't know for sure that we'll know who like that was definitely the second guy. And like at the end of last year, we knew like, okay, there it is, the 1-2, Johnson, Dowdell. And whether you thought it could be better than it was or whatever, you're still like, yeah, it's not bad how they kind of play off each other. It's complimentary. I don't think we're going to get to that point. Now, I've said this on a previous podcast with you. They need to get a game where they get 75 some snaps and they get Mosey like 8 to 10 touches, and we actually see what those guys can do. That's the one thing I'd throw into the conversation. They've had very limited reps with the ball in their hands. So like sometimes people ask like, oh, they don't, what do you think about the running backs? They don't have anything there. It's like, I don't know what they have because we just haven't seen it, but you're 5 games in. And so at this point, I have to say sell to that question.
Buy or sell, the best is yet to come for Nebraska's offense.
I would say buy I wouldn't buy a lot of stock on it right now, but I think what's been proven is the wide receiver depth is what we said it was going to be. Like if you can have a game like where you only have 55 snaps, Dane Key doesn't catch a pass, and it's not like a big storyline even because some other guys, Isaiah Hunter steps up and Barney can step up. I think they have that ability within their offense to have like 4, 5, 6 guys flash, and so they can spread it around week to week. And so because of that, I think they're going to have some good games this October. Now, this is a team that needs some nice weather with it too, though. Like it's weird. Like it's not a team. When I woke up Saturday, or you knew that it was going to be 30-mile-an-hour winds, maybe for Michigan State, I didn't feel great about that matchup because of like some of the things that I think are hindrances to this offense. And so if they get in some of these, there's really like ugly rain, sleet type windy games in November, which is very possible. I don't like this unit as much as a pleasant day, if that makes sense. So it's weird how I need the forecast in front of me. Now they would take umbrage with that, which they should, and say that we can be that offense. But there's part of me that wants to see that proven.
Yep. Buy or sell, Nebraska can fix their red zone issues.
I'd buy that because I am a big Dana guy. I believe in his creativity. Like I thought the play for the first touchdown with Harburg serving as a lead blocker after basically being your quarterback was one that was going to be almost impossible to stop. And I have a feeling they drew up 5, 6, 7 of those type of things that they think they can get to over the course of the season down there. That could be, some would say gadgets, but I don't think they have to be overly tricky, but just like a wrinkle that's going to be useful that will help them have a higher percentage than they have so far.
Last one for you. Buy or sell. This is a 9-win football team. They're 4-1 right now. There's 7 games left on the schedule. To win 9, they got to go 5-2 in their final 7. Or better, obviously.
I'm sticking with my 8-4 right now.
He's selling.
Yeah. It's right on that fringe. It could get to.
Yeah, I didn't want to give you 8. I knew that was too easy, so I had to do 9.
Yeah, I picked 8-4 before the year. I mean, they've basically tracked in a lot of ways like I thought they would this season. It sort of has gone to plan, sort of. I mean, I know we all picked Nebraska over Michigan the week of, And I think we were somewhat influenced by Michigan's loss to Oklahoma, which I don't think was as bad as people made it at the time.
Well, the
Or
thing
like,
is, Nebraska had every opportunity to win that game. I don't think there's any.
yeah,
I mean, they lost. They didn't play great. Michigan didn't play great, and Nebraska still had a chance to win. Like, that's football.
this all comes down to this discussion. The games like October, though, it comes down to like this 2-week stretch. You could put it into that, like just narrow it down. Like you go to Maryland, you go to Minnesota. Do you believe Nebraska has moved up as the type of team that can handle both those games on the road, and they come back to Lincoln 6-1, and think about how on fire this place will be if they do that? And then if they're in that position, I would say certainly 9 wins. So I guess there's a part of me that is skeptical until they prove it, that they can go on the road for these 2 games and not have that game where you face plant or stub your toe. So last year's problems aren't this team's problems, but the rest of us outside the walls still carry those thoughts with us. And so that's going to be a key for this team to not have that mindset and really believe that they're not connected to any of that stuff that we've seen before.
Yeah, and I also think it's worth acknowledging it doesn't even have to be last year's problems. It can just simply be, are you the type of football team that can show up week in and week out? And we don't know that yet about Nebraska. So far, I'd say through 5 weeks, they've largely been able to. I think they've also shown they're the type of football team that can overcome their own mistakes, which is something that hasn't been true about Nebraska football in the past. And so certainly think they have moved forward in that regard. And yet I'm right there with you. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all. The only result out of the next 2 weeks that would be surprising to me is if Nebraska lost both of those games. I don't think they're going to be 4-3 going into playing Northwestern. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 5-2, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're 6-1. But I am, just like you, curious about, can this team show up and do what it sets out to do? Are they that type of football team? And it's not always as easy as you make it sound, or not you, but we make it sound. You just watched a Penn State team that had no business losing to UCLA go out to Pasadena and lose that game, because that's college football. But,
Yep.
Can Nebraska be the type of team that can show up and play their style of football and force their style of football on everybody else? So far, they've largely done that this year. Can they keep doing that? That's kind of the question ahead. Is there any buy or sells that you were waiting for that I didn't get to?
No, I think you got to them all. I was really positive.
Famously, I had these all written out for a week ahead prepping for this show.
No, I was really positive, and then I sort of dinged them by acting like they couldn't play in bad weather and giving them 8 wins. But which I don't know about the weather thing. That was sort of an off the cuff thought. But I did think about that game, like going into last Saturday. I was like, I don't love that. It's like, I don't love this team when like part of it was Michigan State was 115th against the pass. And so you're like, well, that's nice for them that they have 2 quarters where, that's not on the plate. So maybe it was more that game. So I don't know, that opinion could be revisited. But do you have 8 or 9 wins? What do you have right now?
I think that they can get to 9 wins. Yeah, I do. I feel better about this team than I thought I was going to at this point in the season, though they're right where I thought they would be too. I mean, they're exactly at the 4-1 mark, but there's parts of this team, like I didn't think the special teams would look this good. Yeah. And I think it'd be really hard for me to look at the 23 season and 24 season and say that those play out the same way if Nebraska's getting Mike Eckler's special teams versus Ed Foley's special teams. And so right there, I think Nebraska's chances of winning a football game are elevated in every game they go into, because I think the special teams is that good.
Yeah,
I really do.
I like that you also said it's not like I mentioned, don't let last year's problems be this year. And you kind of said, well, it's not even about that. I like that too, because this is the NFL light now, college football. And it's almost like you have to, like, I think fans and media have to adjust somewhat to it, in the fact that, like, you can't let your opinion of what you had thought in the second or third quarter of a game necessarily be what you're carrying an hour or 2 after the game. Yep. Like, I think there's a lot of that's still happening, where it's like people settled on sort of a narrative from a game when it was a bad point. And you got to take more of your Sunday mindset with your favorite team, where going into your NFL team's game, It's going to be a 3-hour roller coaster ride. It's probably going to come down to the last couple minutes, and then you kind of dissect a couple of topics. But the biggest takeaway from Michigan State, when it was all said and done and you walked around the neighborhood with your dog and actually thought about it, was like the D-line answered a big question coming out of the bye, and they won. And so, yeah, the O-line and some of the sack problems, big question this week with Maryland has 19 sacks. So that's going to be a storyline. But the D-line having that moment and Nebraska winning is actually, by the time I got Sunday, that's what I took mostly from that game, is like, well, they made progress. And one of the things we were talking the most about being worried about.
Yeah. For me, a lot of it was they dominated the first and the fourth quarters in these games. And so to me, some of it was just simply Nebraska is a football team that, can get away with not having a great day in between because they were good enough on the other side, of when they struggled. And I felt more positivity coming out of that game, certainly the negativity about things long term, because I do think that defensive line is looking better and going to be better as we get deeper into the season. I think Nebraska's defense is genuinely going to be a challenge for a lot of these quarterbacks that they have on their schedule. And I think they're aided in fact that as you look around, and I don't feel the same way about Penn State that I did.
Yeah.
I don't think that Iowa is a particularly difficult opponent. I haven't in years past. And I like a lot of it to me is, can Nebraska avoid the crippling mistakes? Can Nebraska not give the ball away in their own end zone? And they've done that the last two games, and Dylan Raiola has to clean that up. I didn't really ask any Dylan Raiola specific questions because I don't really know that we have a great feel for exactly what he's going to be in Big Ten play. Through two games, we've seen a little bit of everything. We saw some outstanding plays against Michigan where he gave them an opportunity. We saw him holding on to the ball too long. We saw him make some just bad pre-snap decisions that led to those interceptions. And I think that's just sort of what Dylan Raiola is going to be in year two. I think you're going to get some good, and I think you're going to get some bad, and mostly I think the good is going to outweigh the bad. I think that's Nebraska football too, in a nutshell. I think they're more good than bad, but they're not perfect. And because they're not perfect, there's going to be some stuff to nitpick every week, but more often than not, I think you're going to be feeling good about the version of team that's showing up on Saturday.
So all said, we have Nebraska at 8.5 and 3.5 by the end of the year for a record.
Does that mean they're tying against Northwestern? Is that how that works?
Yeah, some weird, one of the weird games. That would be Northwestern probably, or Maryland. Yeah.
There's a lot of weird games left. There's a lot of I've never seen a football game this weird, and it was weird on Saturday, but that's just also kind of Big Ten football, I think, anymore, and Nebraska football just in general. You're just going to get some odd stuff every game. It's how you roll with it and how you adjust to it that ultimately is going to dictate whether you win or lose. And Nebraska's done a pretty good job adjusting this season.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, hey, that is it for us today here on the Husker247 podcast. If you want more Nebraska content, of course, we have Husker247 Daily, which usually goes up at 10 a.m. Most weekday mornings. Sometimes, like today, we're a little bit off track, so it'll be a little bit later than 10, but that'll be up today. You'll have this as well. Get over to Husker247.com. Plenty of great stuff from BC. He's got the rundown. He's got all the comments from Matt Rule that he had on Monday. He's going to be there, I believe, along with Brunts today for the press conference with the coordinators talking. What's, this is, people will probably be listening to this after you get the chance. If you had one question you could ask Dana Holgorsen and you can guarantee that you get to ask your question, what would it be right now?
No, man. You put me on the spot. I haven't scribbled anything in my notebook yet.
Sorry.
What's your question, though? You got one?
I would like to know if it was by design that they didn't use Emmett Johnson for that stretch there in between the third and the fourth quarter. So he has that 30 yards with the touchdown on the two carries, and then it's like a 12-13 play stretch where you're not using them. So for me, it's more of a question of, was there something you saw from Michigan State where you really want to attack the edges of the field? Was it that you had the wind behind you and you felt like you needed to take advantage of that in the passing game? What was it that led to you to sort of not using Emmett Johnson for like a drive and a half? And I'm curious what his answer would be to that. That's sort of where I come in at it.
If anything could be answered, I'd be curious under the hood what they think about the actual sack problems. And maybe it is generally just said spread out all around, but I'd love to hear that discussion.
The truth serum answer, not the canned answer that you're going to get.
Yeah, so you wouldn't get that at the press conference, but like what's actually their thought on the biggest problem with that, or is it actually so spread around that that's the truth? And does it come back to does the ball have to come out a little quicker on some of those? Because by the numbers, I think some of those sacks were cases where ball was in the hand a while. Some of that's not guys not getting open, but I'd be curious, what Dana's actually saying to those guys in the meeting room about those plays.
Do you have a question you'd ask John Butler?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of it's interesting the youth movement that's going on right now. Not that subtle.
Rex Guthrie and a lot of Dawson Merritt getting out there at the beginning of the game. I would love to know more about Dawson Merritt. Like, what has he done that has put them in a point where, you got a critical game against Michigan State and it's the second play and it's like, oh, wow, Dawson Merritt's out there playing. Like, what do they think that he's going to give them to just go ahead and stick this guy out there? And I think it should be a complimentary thing. It's not. I know I sort of asked it in an accusatory tone, but why is he such a unique talent that he's able to go play? Because this is a guy that didn't have the spring.
Yeah.
I don't think we've given Dawson Merritt enough credit. He was more like a guy who enrolled in the summer and showed up and has been playing football than someone who had all of last year. Now, I know he could learn things on the grease board and mentally prepare, but it's a lot different to physically be able to go out and play college football as a guy who didn't really have the spring to help prepare for that.
I am interested in the linebacker group as a whole. I think some things are a little different than maybe we thought going in. Watson Trent hasn't played as much.
That's a big miss for me.
Yeah,
big miss.
Merritt, as you mentioned, Javen's just playing a ton, and I thought took a big step this last week, and so that's something to build on. Shavers, you can tell, is going to be. He already is good. But you can tell he's just the rest of this season away from being like that just complete linebacker. I think he's going to be a special player here. I do. It's interesting though.
It seems like everybody on the defense loves him, by the way.
Yeah.
Whether it's Deshaun Singleton talking about how he and V9 are getting themselves pumped up before the game and that you got to fight and stuff like that. Then you got defensive linemen talking about how much respect they have for him. That's a guy that has seamlessly made himself part of the fabric of this team. On the other side, Ja'Cory Barney has done the same thing. We often talk about how, sometimes you get these people that don't have the feel for what Nebraska football is. Will they really understand it? Those are two guys from Miami that represent this Nebraska football team as much as anybody.
Cortez Mills would also be playing about like Barney did last year, if not for the fact they were loaded up more on depth at wide receiver.
Catch yesterday or Saturday as well.
He's had one in every game, and so he's fit in. They love Amari Sanders still. I think they think he could be the starting corner next year. Obviously tours from there. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, that's I know people are like, okay, that storyline's been played out, but you have to remember, we wrote and talked about these things for a while, especially in the Frost era with the Florida failures on recruiting and just how that fell apart. And this is the exact opposite to a degree where those guys are I wouldn't say the heartbeat of your team, but Ja'Cory kind of it. Ja'Cory is.
Ja'Cory Barney's the heartbeat of that team.
Ja'Cory is kind of.
I think Shavers might be for that defense.
Some of it, yeah. So yeah, maybe. But that's pretty fascinating how they've hit on such a high percent. We can already say they've hit on a high clip on that. Yeah. Rarely can you do that halfway through the second year of a class.
Well, it's nice to see a program that believes in its ability to get young guys ready to play, that you're not having to wait 3 years to see what they're able to be. I mean, I think that's certainly a stock in the favor of Matt Rule, and I can promise you the recruits notice that when they're standing there on the sidelines and they're seeing Cortez Mills and Vincent Shavers, and when they were freshmen, Ja'Cory Barney playing early, and they're from that same area. It tells them, hey, if I go from Miami to Nebraska or from South Florida to Nebraska, I could play early. I don't have to sit. And so I think that's a very, very valuable thing. All right. We were going to end the show like 10 minutes ago. So bonus content for the people. Now you know what Brian Christopherson's thinking about as he goes into this press conference.
I wasn't thinking about it. What they learned is I wasn't thinking about anything. I really I usually sit down over there and then I jot out some questions. So I hadn't got to that point in my day yet, but
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It was good. It was good for the brain. I need these brain exercises. The older I get, man, I need these, like this window in the morning. You gotta feed this brain, feed it. Yeah. And you did. Thank you.
If you want, I could just set up a calendar alert and give you a call every morning and just start talking to you to feed your brain. But I don't know that that's really what you want in life.
I don't know if I want that, but
no, I don't think you do.
We can think about it.
Yep. All right, everybody. If you're tired of hearing me talk, you can read our work at Husker247.com. So for Brian Christopherson, I'm Mike Schaefer. We're Husker247. We'll catch you next time.